What's going on YouTube? Heylow here, bringing you an all-new Total Warhammer 2 1v1 matchup. So today, the peasants of Bretonnia have marched out for ElHalcon, and he is going to be taking on the Beastmen of Aerocrastic. So for the armies, Halcon, playing the Bretonnians, is going to have the Fey Enchantress as his lord. He's going to have a very, very wide formation consisting of peasant mob, some spearmen at arms with shields, and some peasant bowmen, backed up in the rear by 2 units of foot squires to kind of anchor the infantry fight late game. And his cavalry contingent: Knights of the Lionhearted on the far flank, Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, and the Knights of the Realm at the core. And then his opposite flank is going to have the Companions of Cornelis. In the air, lastly, he will have the Royal Hippogriff Knights. Pretty beastly guys, going to provide a lot of damage, striking from the air with some terror. Fey Enchantress should be able to do a pretty good job of keeping them in the fight till the late game. So, over for Aerocrastic, he's going to be rocking Malagor the Dark Omen, going for those Cygor summons. He's going to have 2 Gorbals. Front line going to consist of some Ungor Spearmen and some Bestigor Herd. Backline going to have some Centaurs with throwing axes, and then he's also going to have the Koroks Manrippers. At his core, the Eye of Morsleb, the regiment around Cygor, and we drop in some mean magic missiles across the map. And also, he does have that Snare ability, which is going to be very useful in stopping cavalry charges or maybe those Royal Hippos late game. Over here, he's going to have more Centaurs with throwing axes, and then he is also going to have some Chaos Warhounds to provide a little bit of mobility and maybe chase some elite things off the battlefield. So, let's get the ball rolling. Okay, so right off the bat, Eye of Morsleb taking a pot shot, lobbing the boulder in after the Knights of the Realm, but they quickly move out of the way. Halcon doing a very good job right away of being aware that his opponent does have the long-range advantage, making sure to keep that elite cavalry mobile and not let them get free hits. That is going to be very, very useful late game, as the Beastmen not really too strong on the cavalry here. They do have a lot of throwing axes, which are going to be great for providing the armor-piercing, like Kite. But unfortunately, they don't have like any kind of Centaurs with great weapons or anything like that to contest the cavalry. So he's going to be relying a lot on his infantry to just kind of tie them up in combat so that his Gorbals and throwing axes can do a lot of the damage. Maybe the Cygors and Eye of Morsleb doing some good work as well to support that. So yeah, a little bit of a slow engagement here, but throwing axes is going to be coming out to kind of harass these peasant mob. But the peasant bowmen with pox arrows firing a volley, and it seems like they kind of hit their own units a little more so than anything else, doing a lot of damage there with their pox arrows. Aerocrastic is going to use his Centaurs to kind of cycle charge those peasants out. Very, very smart move that a lot of people don't think to do with their skirmish cav. Just because it's cheap doesn't mean that you can't use it to also cycle charge other cheap stuff. Of course, you don't want to run it into spears or anything like that, but against peasants, they should do perfectly fine job, as you're seeing. Very, very nice side charge from the Knights of the Realm coming in onto the Ungor Spearmen, with the peasant mob moving into support. His throwing axes do get kind of rinsed up, Aerocrastics, because the peasant bowmen are focusing them very, very hard. And smart move from ElHalcon. He's getting rid of some of that AP, going to keep his cavalry pretty safe towards the late game. Not a lot to chase him down. Poison, or the Chaos Warhounds, excuse me, coming around the backside to try and help envelop and protect his throwing axes. But the Eye of Morsleb, meanwhile, continuing to drop its shots into these archers, trying to take down some of the peasant bows and remove some of that skirmish support. Ungor Spearmen doing a good job of holding up to the peasant mob, mainly though because of the peasant mob's poor leadership. The cavalry here making short work of the Ungor spears. Even though it's anti-large, they really lack the armor piercing to be able to take down the heavy cavalry that Bretonnia brings to the battlefield. Hippogriff Knights flying around in the air, looking for some good targets, but nothing too juicy right now unless he wants to go after Malagor. Probably not a very good idea though, as there are 2 Gorbals running around on the prowl. Some foot squires getting a little mixed up there and tangled in on him, but he is going to be bowling right through, headed straight for the peasant bowmen. Fortunately for ElHalcon, the Fey Enchantress is going to be doing a wonderful job of staying very mobile throughout this game. Very good Lord Micro there for him. And meanwhile, the back line, very, very compromised. Peasant mobs do push through as they're rallying and get into some of these Ungor spears, as well as some throwing axes. And unfortunately, some of the Knights of the Realm, on the other hand, getting caught up in the Koroks Manrippers. Very, very bad engagement here. These guys, the armor-piercing anti-large versions of the Bestigor Herd, going to be doing very, very well against the Knights of the Realm, applying tons and tons of damage. And these guys aren't very slow. You can see they're kind of booking it there, hot in pursuit. But Knights of the Realm ending up getting a little caught up with the defenders of Fleur-de-Lis, trying to finish off some Centaurs with throwing axes. They are going to be kind of getting out of there just in the nick of time, though, as the Man Rippers do catch up. Some more cycle charging going on. Knights of the Lionhearted getting into the back of some Ungor spears, really helping out those peasants clean up that engagement. But the Gorbel, on the other hand, coming in hot, looking to get some kills on the chivalrous cav of Bretonnia, doing some very, very solid damage right away. One thing to keep in mind with these knights is when they're in lance formation, they do a very, very good job with their charges, but you have to be careful not to get them too tied up in things because they are a little bit slower trying to pull out of their engagements. Over here at the core, the wonderful, wonderful Eye of Morsleep, our giant cow friend, getting pretty stuck up in some combat. Spearmen are going to get terrified by the Eye as well as the Gorbels. The throwing axe is pulling out of combat, but the companions of Cornell is going to be getting some nice damage in. Unfortunately, they are going to be taking some in return. Malagor coming in to try and provide some support as well. Royal Hippogriff Knights coming in hot on the Eye of Morsleep with a little bit of Spearmen at Arms support. The Archers, though, withering fire. 2 units here, just providing some great Overwatch support on the Eye of Morsleep. And then the Korok's Man Rippers just absolutely dumping on the Knights of the Lionhearted. So balance of power is still pretty even, but I don't know. The cavalry is still fairly healthy for ElHalcon here. Unfortunately, so are these Gorbels. It's really going to come down to the Korok's Man Rippers and the Gorbel play here. The Eye of Morsleep is pretty much finished off. It is routed, and it is just getting absolutely nuked down by all of this Bretonnian archer support. Fey Enchantress still at very, very good health. Yeah, just not quite enough mobility left for the Beastmen. The throwing axes did what they could, and they did a pretty solid job. Very, very well used. Very valiant effort there. But unfortunately, they just can't really contest with Peasant Bowmen. You take your eyes off of them for 1 second, and you stop moving them, and suddenly a volley of Peasant Archers just dumps on that unarmored cavalry. So Gorbels and Korok's Man Rippers here kind of making a last stand amidst all of this cavalry, all of these peasants, just kind of tying them up. All the archer fire coming in, applying that wonderful, wonderful poison debuff. Oh man, these poor peasants, the men-at-arms desperately trying to take down this Gorbel. This is a very unhappy camper. Oof, Eye of Morsleep decides he's done for the day. Wandering on off. Gonna go nibble on some trees, I guess. I don't know. What do Cygors eat? Probably people. But yeah, not looking too great right now for Aerocrastic as the balance of power continues to tip further and further into ElHalcon's favor. And with the routing of Malagor, that is going to spell doom for the Beastmen forces, and that is going to be GG. Yeah, great game. Really, it seemed like it just came down to the Beastmen not really having any good answers to all of the cheap heavy cavalry that Bretonnia brought for this one, and then the very, very large amount of archer fire. So even though they didn't pick up a lot of kills or chevrons, you have to keep in mind that when a unit is under fire, they also take leadership penalties. So a lot of these Ungors that would normally last longer in their engagements, they're taking a lot of damage from the archers, and then they're also routing a lot faster than they normally would because they are under skirmish fire as well as losing combat. So definitely very key to victory here, as he crumpled the Ungors very quickly with like rear charges as well as the skirmish support. And then he was able to really shut down the Centaurs with throwing axes very quickly in the beginning of the game. You could see that his Peasant Bowmen and his Pox arrows were focusing them, making them slow, doing a lot of damage because they are unarmored, they lack shields, and they are juicy targets. So once he removed those guys, there really wasn't any like AP or anti-large left to really stop this cavalry other than the 2 Gorbels. And these guys just can't really do it all on their own. They don't quite have the size to be able to take out large units of cavalry very quickly. So yeah, in sustained combat, they'll do a very good job. Unfortunately, it's really hard to get them in sustained combat with this many units of cavalry because they're just going to keep moving. They're going to ditch combat. Halcon is a very, very good player, and he's just not really going to be leaving his cavalry unattended for long enough for these Gorbels to really capitalize on their engagements. So very, very well played. But something to keep in mind if you ever end up with this matchup, you really need a way to deal with like a very cheap wide infantry corps. But the cavalry is very key. You have to have good tools to take that down. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to drop a comment down below on what you thought of the builds. What would you do differently? Personally, I myself am not a huge Bretonnia player, but I do think they're very strong. I know a lot of people really like the peasant mobs. They do a good job of sponging damage. Foot squires were definitely interesting. Very, very good work against the bestigors in the late game. But yeah, that's going to be it for all today. I hope you guys enjoy.